Well, the new direct sequel following the 1978 slasher film Halloween releases in only 2 days, and it's simply titled Halloween. I have been excited for the sequel for sure, but that was also brought with a little bit of anxiousness as the franchise hasn't had a good film in the series for almost 20 years. But now, I'm completely stoked, as the film currently holds an 86 on Rotten Tomatoes. Holy shit, this movie is actually going to be good. It might possibly redeem and even save the series. But that's not why I'm here today. I'm here to discuss the Halloween movie series and its strange timeline and history leading up to this upcoming success. Coming up next. Hello everybody, this is Cam from Millzy Entertainment, and happy October and happy Halloween season, and welcome to another entertainment talk video. In this video, we'll be discussing every single film in the Halloween franchise, including all of its flops, all of its successes, and the newest installment in the series, which is apparently a good one. This is a movie talk video all about the Halloween franchise and how the newest installment might just save the series. Let's do it. Now, like I said, I'm pretty much just going to briefly talk about each one. Starting with Halloween 1978. This was a classic slasher film. This movie was amazing. It revolutionized the slasher genre and really kickstarted the slasher genre in general and an entire series that would take some very, very weird turns. There's not much really to say about this, as I like to quickly get through each one, but I really just want to say this movie was brilliant, revolutionized the slasher genre, and really set the way for the series to get a little fucking weird, to be quite honest. But honestly, this is still my favorite horror movie of all time, and I love it. Halloween 2 in 1981. This directly followed the first Halloween movie. It took place right after, following that night, and this movie was good. It was not bad at all. It was definitely, didn't have the same charm that the first movie did hold, but it was able to do a lot of cool things too. You know, it does feel a lot like a lot of other movies in the slasher genre, like Friday the 13th, Texas Chainsaw, a lot of those just generic, you know, horror movies that it didn't have that same feeling that the first one was able to bring us, but still, it did have some fun scenes, and it wasn't completely terrible. Plus, Michael went up in flames at the end, so that had to have been the end, right? Right? Well, as we know, that's not the case. Next up, Halloween 3, Season of the Witch. Now, I personally enjoy this movie. See, this film had nothing to do with Michael Myers, because I believe it was Universal. Universal? Anyone? Yes. Universal decided, let's not continue talking about Michael Myers, let's just do like a Halloween anthology series, starting with a story all about this dude, this creepy old motherfucker who wants to brainwash kids and basically sacrifice families on Halloween night. It's an interesting movie. I honestly really like it. I think it's cool, but as you see, this movie was not well received at all, and I never really understood that, because I personally really, really enjoy it, but I guess it's just because Michael Myers wasn't in it. You know, they wanted to go a different direction, but people just wanted more Michael. And that's exactly what they got. Halloween 4, The Return of Michael Myers. We saw Michael return, all right. This movie is not terrible. Honestly, there's a lot worse movies in the franchise. But this one was it was generic. It was really similar to Halloween 2, but not to the same extent. This one just started to get a little bit weird. You know, you had this new family. All of a sudden, Laurie Strode was dead. She's gone. She's gone forever, except for not really, obviously. But this continued the timeline directly following Halloween 2, and it really just takes place a few years later, and there's this whole scene where it talks about how Michael had nearly burned to death.
Then he set him on fire. Both of them nearly burned to death.
Like, fucking right, he nearly burned to death. His eyeballs were literally on fire. Like, he was gone, he was dead, but of course they had to find a way to bring him back. And this is where the series really started to turn into like Friday the 13th, where it's like they just had to keep bringing him back. They couldn't let him die. If the money was coming in, even if it was going to be shitty reviews, they were going to keep going. So that's Halloween 4. Not terrible, has some decent scenes. The characters were all right. The little girl, what's her name, Jamie, I believe. Not bad. It was cool to see Dr. Loomis return, but other than that, pretty much just a generic Halloween movie. So that's all I really have to say about that one. Then continuing that same timeline, we have Halloween 5, The Revenge of Michael Myers. And this is honestly, I always mix up this and 4 because, well, first of all, this movie's not good. It's kind of a piece of shit. It's not terrible, as I just call it a piece of shit. But it isn't extremely, excruciatingly horrible. It's just not good either. It's very cheesy. The characters in this were just stupid. This is where it turned into, really, this isn't even logical at this point. And just the way they brought him back, I believe this is where he gets... is this where he gets struck by lightning? Or the way they brought him back, I was like, what the fuck? Just let the dude die. Let Michael be gone. We honestly didn't need any more after the second, but of course they were just going to keep going, and they tried to set up this whole mythology thing, which leads into the sixth movie about how Michael is part of this cult, this Thorn cult, and he's been, possessed by Satan, like by a satanic cult. It's like, what the fuck are you doing? Michael Myers is just a killer. He kills teenagers. He's after the Strode family. I believe is it the Strode family? Or no, it's like his bloodline, basically. Not the Strode family, but his bloodline. He's after the Myers family. He was after the girl who, by the way, when I first saw this movie, I expected her to be the killer. At the end of the movie, she kills her stepmom. And it's like, holy shit, maybe she's being possessed by that same sort of thing that Michael was being possessed by in the Thorn cult. After he sacrifices his own family member, you would think like, oh, she'll be the new killer. Not quite. See, and I always thought that. That should have been the direction they took, was that kind of like a Friday the 13th had the mom and then Jason, you could have a new killer. Still be the Halloween series, still the same premise, but you'd have Jamie, who grows up to be like the next Michael. Maybe Michelle Myers. Except for her last name wasn't Myers. Anyway, I've been talking about this one for too long, but this one, not great. It's watchable, I'll say that. But the characters are stupid, the storyline was just starting to get fucked up, and yeah. Honestly, if you're gonna watch this timeline of Halloween movies, stop after 2, maybe even 4. Also, I just fucked up that whole thing, because I'm pretty sure the ending of 4 is actually... Was it the ending of 4? It's either the ending of 4 or the ending of 5. I think it's actually the ending of 4 where she sacrifices her mom. And that was when, because then she ends up in the hospital, and you'd think like, oh, she'd be the new killer, but instead Michael was after her. So that... Okay, anyway. Then Halloween 6, The Curse of Michael Myers. This is an atrocious piece of shit. Paul Rudd is in it, but that's the extent of it of it being good. Except for even then, he's not the best. I was only 8 years old when I saw him. Like, what the fuck was that? The Curse of Michael Myers. This was the first one where it's unwatchable, in my opinion. The first entry in the entire series where it's just not good. You had this family that was very, very uninteresting. You had Michael, who, the mask, like... What the hell was that? Like, the mask just didn't look good, in my opinion. It just, at this point, it looked really bad. Like, ever since Halloween 2, the mask has looked off, but this was one where it just did not look good at all. And you just had all this weird stuff with Tommy Doyle, who didn't even feel like a human being. He felt like he was like a vampire, basically, just like being like a pervert. And he's spying on the girl next door while he was obsessed with Michael Myers. It was just a really weird character, not interesting. And this movie just didn't have anything interesting really going on, and you had all this weird mythology that they tried to get into with, the whole Thorn cult, and I'm like, no, I don't want that. So, other than that, it was cool to see Dr. Loomis, back for one last time before he did pass away, and, you get his final send-off, which is this, like, terrifying scream. Halloween, The Curse of Michael Myers marks the end of the first timeline, because after this, they were like, okay, that movie, the reviews were horrible. It didn't even make enough money. We can't continue this series. Like, they didn't drag it out like Friday the 13th where there's like 11 entries in that timeline. No. They decided to let it die. At least that's what we all thought. Until, boom, Halloween 20 years later. H20, as it's really called, H2O is what other people call it. I always thought that was kind of weird, but this one is actually, in my opinion, very good. This was the first one that was actually good since, like, genuinely really good since Halloween 2. It started a brand new timeline where it's taking place 20 years later. It's a direct sequel. Basically, Halloween 2 through 6 never happened. It just takes place right after the first, 20 years later, and it's good, The characters aren't the best, but they're not horrible either, like some of the other characters we've seen in the past with the series. And you had LL Cool J in it, which was kind of weird. He's like an aspiring writer. Yeah, no. But besides that though, besides some of like the little weird things like that, I really like this movie. It was definitely a great direct sequel. It's cool to see Jamie Lee Curtis back kicking ass. There's a lot of good, jump scares. There's also some cheap jump scares. There's a lot of good jump scares. There's a lot of like hell yeah, like fist pumping hell yeah moments. So that's awesome. And I always really liked this one. This is honestly my favorite after the original Halloween. So honestly, if you've never picked this up because, it's one of the sequels where you're just avoiding it, honestly, give it a watch. That's all I gotta say. But of course, they couldn't stop there. They're like, oh, cool, this movie did well. It did well, Even though Michael Myers gets his head chopped off at the end of the movie by Laurie Strode, they're like, why not have a sequel? Halloween Resurrection. Now, first of all, evil finds its way home. Get the fuck out of here with that slogan. But first of all, I have never seen this movie. I have never seen it, and I never will. I refuse. I might actually watch it someday. I refuse to watch this movie. The one redeeming thing about it is apparently Thomas Ian Nicholas is in it from American Pie. Kevin, K-Dog. So he's kind of cool. Probably the only thing he's done besides the American Pie franchise. Anyway, this movie is a piece of shit. So the end of Halloween 20 years later ends with Laurie Strode chopping off Michael's fucking head. You know, like he's dead, he's gone. You know, it's cool. We had Halloween, then we had Halloween 20 years later, a direct sequel, and it's done. There was no reason for this movie. Halloween Resurrection basically says that Laurie Strode goes into a mental institution because she accidentally chopped off the head of a paramedic or ambulance driver, whatever he was, who got his costume switched with Michael. Michael switched the costumes, so Michael's actually on the run, and she actually killed the paramedic or the ambulance driver, whatever. Bull fucking shit, first of all. No. No. Come on, that is the cheapest way to bring someone back. That is worse than in Friday the 13th, Jason Takes Manhattan, where Jason got brought back to life by an anchor being struck by lightning or whatever it was. Like, no, get out of here. Anyway, like I said, I've never seen it. Tyra Banks is in it. Busta Rhymes is in it. I've seen the fight scene with Busta Rhymes. That's pretty hilarious. Other than that, this is just a mess as far as I know, what I've heard. It is the one Halloween movie that I just refuse to watch. And the overall plot, by the way, if you haven't seen it, is that it's a group of teenagers on a reality show taking place in Michael Myers' house. It's being hosted by Tyra Banks and Busta Rhymes, who I think play themselves, but it's just stupid. Anyway, I could just keep ranting on about a movie I've never even seen, but we'll just skip that. Now, we're going to talk about the remakes. That was the end of the second timeline. There was only 3 movies in that timeline. So now we're going to talk about the remakes, which came out in 2007 and 2009. Halloween 2007. This was the remake of Halloween done by Rob Zombie. Now, this movie is a trashy, gritty, raunchy film, and I love it. I honestly really like this remake. It's one of the few remakes that I actually genuinely enjoy of horror movies. I kind of like the Nightmare on Elm Street remake. It's sort of a guilty pleasure. It's definitely very watered down, but I do still enjoy it. But going back to this, I really do like this remake. You know, it's interesting to see Michael's backstory, to see, you know, him as a kid and how he gets to that point, seeing him in the mental institution over the years and with his mother who's still alive, you know, during that whole thing. The father's out of the picture, and then, you know, he killed the stepdad. But it's interesting to see his whole backstory, and I think Malcolm McDowell as the Doctor was a very brilliant choice. I really enjoyed that. This movie has some very over-the-top, raunchy, just like gritty, like scenes that don't need to be in the movie at all. Like, it's like, why the fuck is this even in here? But, you know, that's just Rob Zombie's thing. So if you've seen any of his other movies, it's very similar to that style. But honestly, not much to say about this, except it's interesting to see Michael, you know, in his early years, although sometimes it's hard to believe that to see how this kid really becomes this way, besides being in a dysfunctional family, like what really made him that fucked up, I guess. But overall, good remake. It was nice to see the series die and just be brought back with this remake. But then, of course, there is a sequel to that remake. Halloween 2, which is the only other film in the entire Halloween franchise that I have not seen besides Resurrection. From what I've heard, this movie's a mess. It's kind of like an art house film. It's very different, you know, has nothing to do with the actual Halloween 2. This is like Rob Zombie's own thing. It's not even a remake of Halloween 2. It's really just a sequel to his movie, to his Halloween remake. But I don't know much about this movie except for apparently it's a mess, and there's not really anything I can say except family is forever. Never seen it, but apparently it's not that great. And this was the very end of the Halloween series. I think this might have one of the lowest scores of any Halloween movie. So this was the last time we saw a Halloween film. It was 2009 with this remake. Now let's talk about what we've all been waiting for, Halloween 2018. This movie is a direct sequel to Halloween in 1978, and it takes place 40 years after the original. Nothing that has come out at any point in the Halloween series is part of this canon timeline. This is a third canon timeline, besides, you know, not including the remakes, a third canon timeline where it directly follows Halloween 1. And then this one is going to be pretty cool because basically, rather than in 20 years later, which we saw how Laurie was just kind of like, you know, had a lot of PTSD, in this one, she just wants to kill him. She wants him to come home because she wants to kill him and put an end to his bullshit. So I'm looking forward to this movie. Right now it's at 86 on Rotten Tomatoes. I am extremely excited. This movie comes out in 2 days, and I think it's safe to say this movie is actually going to be good, judging from all the reviews and everything, and from early screenings that a friend of mine let me know about. Apparently it's good. So I'm extremely excited for this. This film will most definitely redeem the franchise. I can say that with confidence. It will redeem the franchise. It will save the franchise. But the one thing I have to say is I really hope they don't ruin that by following it with a string of shitty sequels. You have something good here. Why don't you just leave that be? Kind of like with 20 years later. You had something good. You had like a final thing that follows Halloween 1. 20 years later, should have left it be. but I'm definitely looking forward to this. Has one of the highest scores of any Halloween movie ever, possibly the highest. I'll put a little message on screen to correct myself if I'm wrong, but I believe this is the highest score a Halloween movie has ever had since maybe the first one. But definitely looking forward to that. So what do you think? Will the newest film in the series, which releases in only 2 days, redeem the franchise? Or do you think they should have just left it alone? Also, give me your thoughts down below on what you think some of the best and worst entries in this series so far have been. I'd love to hear all about that, so let me know your thoughts down below. Anyway guys, thank you for watching. If you enjoyed, go ahead and please like and comment. I really appreciate it and it really helps me out. And if you haven't yet, go ahead and click that subscribe button because I release all kinds of entertainment related content similar to this and you don't want to miss it.